Opportunities Are Here on Instagram and The Opportunities Are Here on Facebook for more information and the registration link. Online selections begin on the 12th of October and registration closes on the 22nd of October. The Opportunities Are Here is a project by the Ethical Fashion Initiative in partnership with the European Union. Project X is co-produced by KTN Home and Vibes Radio. The opportunities are here. Project X, the big...
Okay, so traffic is building up and it already is happening on Mombasa Road this morning. And we're seeing quite a lot of it, especially around that whole SGR section of the road this morning. All right, let's look at the Thika Superhighway where it is already built up as well, feeding into the city. We're looking at some of it then coming in, going towards the Muthui Square and then joining... going towards the Pangani underpass. All right, in other parts of the city, it's not too bad actually. On the eastern side of things, coming off Outer Ring, that is flowing very smoothly this morning. Jogo Road doesn't look too bad, a little bit of a sticky situation here and there, but not too terrible. We're also looking at good movement coming out of Westlands, but remember we still that it would get sticky soon and you can use the Red Hill Link Road. Use your bypasses, folks. They'll help out this morning. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. That's how you can get in touch with us. Let us know what you see. You get stuck somewhere, you find a good route. Let us know that as well via text on 40127.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Continues. So there's a story in The Nation today. We've been reading the stories of various kidnappings, families asking where are our kin. For example, Helen Wairimu doesn't know where her son, Wilson Mwangi, 26-year-old border rider, is among 15 people who were abducted in the Mount Kenya region over the past 3 months. He was grabbed on the evening of the 27th of June in Naromoru. The hardest part is not knowing where my son is, if he is dead or alive. If I was looking at his grave today, I would probably have already made peace with it, but now I can't have peace. That's what his mother, Ms. Wairimu, says. Like Mwangi's family, relatives of the other missing men have spent weeks traversing central Kenya and beyond earlier this year. With contradictory accounts about the man's abductions are fueling suspicion that poaching and illegal trade in game trophies could be the main motive. His first publicized abduction happened around 5:30 p.m. on the 29th of June on Kanisa Road in Nyeri town, when he was taken by armed men just 135 meters from his barbershop. Remember, he operates a barbershop, all right? He was driving a small Toyota Premio outside a hotel when 3 men in a station wagon blocked his car. Witnesses say they saw the men talking to Gwandaru through his window for a few minutes. The men tried to get him to open the door, but he refused and they walked away. A few minutes later, he got out of his car and started walking towards his barbershop. That's when the 3 men grabbed him, dragged him into their car. The vehicle drove off, followed closely by 2 others. It's later emerged that this was not the first time this man has been abducted. He was taken in similar fashion on the same street 4 years ago. May 30th, 2017, the businessman was abducted outside his barbershop. Police and court records that the Nation have show that at 7:55 p.m. on that day, his family made a report at the Nyeri Central Police Station saying he had been abducted. That night, KWS officers took Gwandaru and another man identified as Geshovi Mwai to Rumuruti Police Station in Laikipia County. In the OB entered on the 31st of May, the officers reported that they had arrested the 2 for being in possession of 2 elephant tusks weighing 7.5 kilograms and a hunting rifle. Later, those people, the 2 gentlemen, were charged in court. But this case was thrown out of court last year, October 8th, because there were some conflicting reports in how this matter was reported. So, number one, police went and said they had arrested this man on the 31st of May. But other reports are indicating 30th of May. Then, the incongruence on the make of the firearm that they were accused of having led to the case being thrown out by the senior resident magistrate Ocharo Momanyi last year. The second accused, Mr. Moi, had died in the course of the trial. The nation has learned that he was shot dead at Olpejeta Conservancy for poaching. After the nation uncovered and published details of Gwandaru's past abduction, the family requested that we stop running stories linking him with his family name and other business engagements. Led by his father, Derito Gwandaru, they also requested that we stop looking into his son's disappearance, as we were leaving it to God and the police. So these abductions, it appears that people close to Mr. Gwandaru have seen it happen before, and they seem to have an idea what could be happening. So the family has said, all right, okay, now do this. I just stop linking that man to our name. Just, in fact, if you can stop writing these stories, it's okay. Yeah, it's even better. Tumeachia Mungu.
Okay. Wow. Talk about an attractor.
Yep.
The Nation, page 7.
Uh-huh.
Leak. Pandora Papers reveal details of first family members' holdings. Subtitle. Title. Over 400 state officials hold foreign accounts.
Uh-huh.
Now, this entire article refers to an amendment in our laws in 2012, which departed from what originally had been in the Constitution regarding state officers and their ability to hold foreign bank accounts. The law had been clear. You cannot. If you're a state officer, you cannot. It's not complicated.
Yep.
2012, an amendment, you can, but you have to seek permission.
Okay.
Right.
The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission must give you permission. Now, according to the CEO, they are telling us over 400 officers hold accounts because they have authorized that number.
So over 400 officers have applied to the EACC.
Yes.
And EACC has allowed them to
Yes.
hold foreign accounts.
Yes, they have.
Okay.
However, they said that 191 of these public officers, many of them who are working in foreign missions. Remember, if you work in foreign missions, you are likely to have an account, okay?
Yes.
Okay? Now, part of the problem is they are required to give an yearly account, of the bank account activities.
Yes.
Some of them don't. Some of them also have accounts that they haven't declared. But this is specific to people who are working in our missions abroad.
Okay.
So far, so good?
So far, so good.
Yes.
So most of those applicants are people who work in Kenya's embassies and all abroad.
Yes.
Like Dr. Mukisa Kitui, who
Yes.
was UNCTAD
Yes.
boss, obviously.
Yes. And everybody else who works in all the embassies we have abroad.
Embassies,
All those, people know ambassador, they probably know deputy. They have members of staff.
Yes.
All those people have accounts abroad. Okay? So, the debate, of course, still rages on and says that this is a loophole that shouldn't have been created in the first place. But there's something that isn't coming out clear. You see, it is one thing to have a foreign account. It's another to have an offshore account. I'm going to explain what I mean. The reference to offshore accounts refers to tax havens.
Right.
Yeah.
Places where you take your money specifically because their laws are lenient when it comes to matters of taxes, and they don't look too closely as to the sources of your wealth. Okay? But as to having foreign accounts abroad, very many Kenyans have accounts abroad.
Yeah.
If you're a student at some point outside the country, you will have an account abroad.
Yes.
If you've worked in some capacity abroad over a period of time, you will have an account abroad.
Yes, you will.
Yes. So there is a need to distinguish between people who take their money to tax havens and people who've just held ordinary accounts, bank accounts in foreign destinations because of when they have children who probably go to school there and they need to have that money there. Though someone will argue, but you can send the money directly from Kenya. You can.
Yeah.
There are those who've worked there. There are those who have businesses abroad and so they need to have accounts. There's a distinct difference.
Yeah.
This debate is still going to go on. You know why? A new angle has been introduced into this, and the angle has been people pushing and saying these people who have money abroad, they should bring the money back in. I find that argument, in my opinion, a bit hypocritical. And I'm going to say why I think it is hypocritical. Our laws don't allow you to actually dictate how somebody should go about using their money.
Okay.
Yes, it is their money. The only time the law can intervene is if it is proved that that money was obtained in a manner that abrogated the law, or in having it you have abrogated some law. Then the law comes in. But as to, because let me tell you my fear. Whenever you hear of such a thing, it's more or less trying to say you are going to give some of our security forces broad sweeping powers. My fear usually is, where does it end?
There's that, yes, but let's also look at it from the other context. And this is the context of, why do we have a requirement for wealth declaration? Why do we have a requirement for transparency? Not for every Kenyan, but for state officers.
Yes.
Why? It's because of past experience. So if you want to operate an account outside this country, if it's inside the country, then you can apply from the courts. CBK will ask a local bank, give us access to these accounts. Now, if the account is outside the country, then you're basically operating under a different jurisdiction.
Yes, you are.
So if it's EACC, and EACC has found that there's a certain senior officer at Kenya Rural Road Authority, and they want to investigate, how much money are they holding in their accounts, they don't have access to that.
No, they will not have access to it.
And that's why they say, if you're operating an account outside the country, just come and alert the EACC. So EACC giving you authority is basically EACC saying, okay, yeah, we can see why it makes sense. Go ahead and have an account. And then you'll tell us, this is the account that I hold in a certain bank. They are not asking you to tell them the passwords for those accounts or to be a joint signatory to the account. It's at the end of the year, when you're coming to fill out your wealth declaration, you will also include this particular account and say, I operate these accounts, I own this kind of wealth.
You see what I am?
Now, there are some people, like the ESSA is saying, who've been authorized to operate an account, and they came back and said, I have an account with HSBC Bank in this country, and this is the account. But then they also operate other accounts which they have not declared.
Yes.
And now you see where the problem.
I see that problem completely. The issue I was raising with regards to the clamor that is slowly building momentum for that money to be repatriated. It started with the pointing and saying, no. Kenya right now is in a bit of a problem. We're in a bit of a pickle. And there is need for people who have money abroad to repatriate. I'm saying, no. Let's be clear. Okay? Let's first of all understand that having money abroad is not a crime.
Yes.
But there are procedures that you must follow if you're going to have an account abroad.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
Now, even if it is found that that money was obtained illegally, as you correctly put it, the jurisdiction under which you're going to be functioning is that country's jurisdiction.
Yes.
And then they will look at the laws that we have or the memorandum of understanding we have with that country with regard to such money.
Yeah.
If we don't have an MOU that enables that country to repatriate that money back to this country, there is nothing you will do about it.
Kwisha. Let's take this quick break. It's 12 minutes to 7. Kenya's biggest conversation. Nathan Bosira says this is the place to be tuned in from Garissa County. Good morning to you. Sovereign Christophe. Today is the first Thursday of the week, my brother. No, it's the first Friday of the week also on this show. Thursday and Friday, same was up. End of the week. Good morning. We'll be back shortly.
Forgiveness is always conditional. Even before God, there's nothing like unconditional forgiveness.
Government doesn't pay you pension until you retire. In fact, they have no money for you. The day you retire, they look for it.
This country is punishing many young people. These young people are more susceptible to be deceived, to be taken advantage of, and they're more susceptible to be bought off.
Let us also talk about where we want our country to go. We are a population of very young people.
We're in a state of capture. The judiciary is under duress. Parliament is in the pocket of the executive. You don't sit and wait for the regime to topple itself. It will never do so.
By the way, let me tell you, these guys are so persuasive. I'm telling you, they can persuade you to sell your grandmother. I'm telling you, they can sell sand in the desert.
Say, has anybody on this program said to you as a guest, say, oh, shut up, we don't want to be told what to do? Has you ever that kind of... Has anybody been
I will not listen.
bit of advice? Because you're working on the premise that we should all pay heed to these proverbs. It's a very suspect notion.
This is the Situation Room, the
10 to
only
7.
way to start your day.
So the man who shot Ronaldo Foods owner has been jailed for 20 years. Yet another case that has taken some time to go through the wheels of justice. Nairobi hotelier William Osewe, who owns the popular Ronaldo Foods restaurant, will never forget the events that happened to him on December 1st, 2016. So it started as a small argument, they say, between his friend Tom Boyer over what was suspected to be a love triangle involving his wife. Has forever changed his life.
Whose wife?
Tom Boyer's wife.
Okay.
At one time, he almost died when Boyer shot him 4 times, condemning him to a bed at Nairobi Hospital, hovering between consciousness and painful deliriums. After a long 5-year wait, Osewe got justice when the man who almost killed him was yesterday sentenced to 23 years in jail. Nairobi Chief Magistrate Martha Mutuku ruled that Mboya was guilty of attempting to murder the restaurateur and for wounding another man, Wilfred Tembula, who tried to intervene during the shooting incident along Thika Road. Having considered the evidence, she said, the mitigation and the fact that the accused was a first offender, the court sentences him to 20 years in jail for the attempted murder charge and another 3 years jail sentence for wounding another victim. Mutuku, however, stated that the sentences will run concurrently, which means Mboya, who will, until his conviction, was running a tour operating firm, will spend 20 years in jail. The magistrate ruled that the fact Mboya shot Osewe 4 times and almost killed him justified the harsh sentence and dismissed his defense that he was provoked, adding that the evidence presented by the prosecution was so overwhelming. The magistrate had last week found Mboya guilty of the offence and sent him to industrial area prison to await his sentence. He was, however, not present in court after falling ill, with the sentencing being delivered virtually.
Wow.
For Osewe, the wounds and the gunshots that kept him at Nairobi Hospital for many days may have healed, but the scars will remain forever, given that he has not fully recovered and cannot walk for long due to the pain in his waist.
25 years. Friends.
Yes.
3 shots. Wow.
The question we'd like to ask is, were they sober?
Both of them?
By the time people go around pulling out firearms,
and this is not in in a public place. This is in one of the 2 gentlemen's houses.
Yes.
It's this one. Okay, it's one of those. There's the business page of the Standard today has a photo. It's a very lovely photo of 2 ladies that brings to the fore something. Our power sector right now is being led by women.
power as in
Energy.
Power. Yeah,
Our energy sector.
Yeah.
Let's start with the Cabinet Secretary, Ambassador Monica Juma, woman. We go to Kengen, the Kengen Managing Director, Rebecca Miano.
Woman.
Kenya Power, CEO, Engineer Rosemary Oduor.
Woman.
Board of Kenya Power, Chairperson is a woman. Are you seeing that? Do you see that?
I actually see it.
You see that?
They have surpassed the 2/3 gender rule.
Yes.
If they can do it, government can too.
You know something?
No, it's illegal then. What are you saying?
That's actually what I'm saying.
If MD of Kemgen is woman, MD of Kenya Power is woman, then the other should be a man.
The other one should be a man.
Yes,
Yes,
because
yes.
I mean, and then
And it's,
even minister.
even minister, this is a good thing though.
This thing is becoming a chama.
Wow. Have you just said that places where women are in multiple numbers
you
are
know.
jama?
That is precisely what I have said. It is an extremely sexist comment.
Thoroughly.
And I have just said it.
Thoroughly.
Yes.
On the same page, the World Bank says Kenya is going to grow at 5%. Kenyan economy is set to grow by 5% this year on the back of improved construction and ICT sectors, as well as the continued rollout of COVID vaccines. According to the World Bank's latest report, indicating the country's economy is set to rebound faster than Sub-Saharan Africa's growth average of 3.5% this year. Economic activity in Kenya is projected to rebound from negative 0.3% growth in 2020 to 5% in 2021, expected to grow at an average of 4.8% in next year to 2023. World Bank is looking at us and saying, good. Now, when the World Bank says something like that, you know what that tells the government? Go to the market.
Borrow some more.
Go to the market. And that is why the same newspaper on page 8 of the Standard, Kenya to hit 9 trillion shillings debt ceiling in a few months.
Alarm.
Kenya could hit the 9 trillion debt ceiling by the end of next year if the current pace of borrowing is left unchecked. This is according to Auditor General Nancy Gathongu, who spoke yesterday, and she was telling the Senate Committee on Finance and Budget that public debt is progressively increasing and approaching the approved 9 trillion shillings ceiling. The outstanding public debt it's at 7.6 trillion as at 30th of June, representing 84% of the 9 trillion ceiling. According to the Auditor General, Kenya's expense on public debt has more than doubled from 421 billion in 2015 to 867 billion in the last financial year. Okay. Let's end the hour on a happy note. What story do you have?
Why Kenyan ocean fish is up for grabs. Essentially, the article talks about, it's a happy note.
Right.
It tells us that Kenya is able to realize 10 billion shillings yearly in fishing. But we had a contract with a surveillance company, a French surveillance company called Colette Localization Satellites. I'm sure it's pronounced differently. But that contract came to an end. We have only one vessel.
Contract for what?
Surveillance.
Okay.
Now, in the absence of surveillance, it means anybody can fish in our waters, and we will not know whether they're fishing or not. There are 10 Chinese vessels whose certificates have been withdrawn because Kenyans working on those ships have complained of mistreatment. Now, we only have one ship. One. It's called the MV Doria. That is for the Coast Guards. One that is supposed to man our boundaries, our sea boundaries.
Right.
Now, in the absence of a proper way of ensuring that we man our waters, it means, as I said, anybody can come in and fish.
People will sneak in and out.
They will sneak in and out, yes. And what that means also is that we clearly do not have our own shipping vessels. And it raises the question, why? And yet, this is a 10 billion a year business.
Industry. And we've been very, very big on talking about our blue economy. In fact, even increasing our cooperation with some of these countries like the Caribbean islands, where the president is now in Barbados.
Yes, and the Netherlands were very keen in helping us build our capacity for the blue economy. But again, there has been more talk than anything else. One vessel won't cut it.
No.
So MV Doria is the only one that came with the establishment of the Kenya Coast Guard.
Yes, we have one. And it was launched by the president.
Where
do you have one?
In a Shika Doria. Hey.
But I must add, the Navy also helps them from time to time, but that is not the function of the Navy.
Yeah. Okay. Keep it right here. In the next hour, we're going to have a conversation about the judiciary and what's happening in the judiciary. The Chief Justice, when we spoke to her a couple of weeks ago, she told us that she was launching her vision and manifesto for her term as Chief Justice. She already launched it. It's out there. She is seeking to make sure that people get easier access to justice. Now, the Chief of Staff in the Chief Justice's office will be joining us in the next hour. She'll tell us what are they doing. What are they doing to build the office of the Chief Justice, make sure that it's a proper institution, and then to see the tenure of current Chief Justice Martha Koome actually delivers on the promises that she's made to the people. This is a conversation that we'll be having with the Chief of Staff in the office of the Chief Justice. There are so many chiefs in the judiciary. Chief Justice, Chief of Staff, Chief Registrar, Chief Magistrate, Chief this and the other.
What it also tells you that they are sub-chiefs.
They are sub-chiefs, huh?
Yes. I mean, to be chief...
They call them principal.
Yes. A chiefdom has to have subordinates.
Some subordinates.
Yes.
Hey, Chief. Hey. All right, keep it right here. Thank you very much for tuning in. Mike Mwangi, my favorite morning talk show. You guys rock. Thank you very much, Chief. Lebanon Tanui also. Asanteni sana for keeping it locked. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. We're here between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. every weekday morning. It's now 7 a.m. Good morning.
your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Newswire. Dennis Asante. President Uhuru Kenyatta has been conferred the Order of Freedom of Barbados award by the Barbadian government for his leading role in the promotion of global trade and the strengthening of relations between African and the Caribbean countries. The highest state honor conferred on outstanding Barbadian citizens and foreign nationals for extraordinary service to Barbados, Caribbean diaspora, or to humanity at large was presented to President Kenyatta by the country's Governor General Sandra Mason at Government House in Bridgetown. Now, the Auditor General Nancy Gathungu has warned the government that the budget proposed by Treasury and approved by Parliament in June this year should be re-evaluated if Kenya intends to get out of debt. Gathungu, who appeared before the Senate Finance and Budget Committee, called on the government to control its costs, saying that revenue collected by the government will never meet Kenya's more than 3 trillion budget. Kenya's debt is at 84% of the 9 trillion shillings, which is the maximum ceiling after the bill was approved by Parliament 2 years ago. Now, as the country continues to put in place strategies that will see our fight against COVID-19 enhanced, Kenya has received 252,000 doses of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine through the COVAX program. COVID-19 Vaccination Task Force Chairman Dr. Willis Ahwale said while the government has a target of vaccinating 10 million people by December next year, it's sad that only a few Kenyans show up to be vaccinated. He said Bungoma, Kakamega and Homa Bay counties continue to record low numbers.
Eligible population of 600,000, only 10,000 are fully vaccinated. This should be concerning to all of us as Kenyans because we are just going through the end of the fourth wave, and as we've seen, the first wave led to a higher second wave, led to a higher third wave, and now we can get a higher fifth wave. This is the time to get people vaccinated. Vaccination is for prevention. It is the time that we should really get out there and get Kenyans vaccinated if we have to mitigate the negative impact of the coming wave.
He also dismissed the notion that there are some vaccines that are more effective in preventing infections than others, saying that all vaccines have the same potential.
Let me dispel this myth about a vaccine being superior to another. We are also getting reports that are a bit concerning that people are preferring and saying, I'll wait until I receive a particular vaccine. That is not the way to help this country. We have severally said and repeated that the vaccines that are WHO approved, they have the same efficacy. They will prevent severe disease. We don't have the luxury of trying to choose vaccines now. Please, we want to pass the message to Kenyans. All these vaccines are equal. It is not a time to choose.
The World Health Organization has approved the first vaccine against malaria, a disease that has claimed the lives of thousands of children in Africa. Announcing the approval, WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said the vaccine had been started in Africa and that its availability was one of the biggest steps in tackling malaria-related disasters.
This vaccine can be delivered through child health clinics by ministries of health and readily reach children at high coverage levels. Community demand for the vaccine is strong. It has broad reach to children, including the most vulnerable who may not use a bed net, thereby expanding access to preventive measures to children at risk. It is safe. It significantly reduces life-threatening severe malaria, and we estimate it to be highly cost-effective. This is a powerful new tool.
He also stated that the vaccine will be used in conjunction with other anti-malarial measures and that it is safe and has no side effects.
This recommendation is based on results from an ongoing pilot program in Ghana, Kenya, and Malawi that has reached more than 800,000 children since 2019. This long-awaited malaria vaccine is a breakthrough for science, child health, and malaria control. Using this vaccine in addition to existing tools to prevent malaria could save tens of thousands of young lives each year. We have made incredible progress in the fight against malaria in the past 2 decades.
About 800,000 children in Africa have been vaccinated in 3 phases of the study in Kenya, Malawi, and Ghana, and that it will help combat malaria. A meeting between Okoh principals and Mount Kenya leaders through the Mount Kenya Forum is expected to take place today. Okoh leaders Musalia Mudavadi, Kalonzo Musyoka, Gideon Moi, and Moses Wetangula are expected to use the opportunity to state their plan for Mount Kenya if they form the next government. Okoh members will be looking to assure the forum that Mount Kenya will not be left out of the government. After the meeting, the Mount Kenya Foundation will meet with President Uhuru Kenyatta, where they'll present a report with their recommendations. In previous meetings with Odinga, the foundation appeared to say that it supports Odinga as president. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
It's inbound on Mombasa Road this morning, and we've seen quite a lot of it actually then going past North Airport Road out to the eastern part of the city, and that's where it's building up this morning. Also coming off of Langata Road, coming off the southern bypass, which is free as air, by the way, so you want to use that to get off Mombasa Road if you can. Coming off from the Likoni interchange as well, from industrial area, Lunga connecting with Likoni is not so bad. Makadara on Jogo Road, though, is piling up as you get to the City Stadium roundabout and then out onto Landys Road. That looks like a little bit of a mishmash, but it's not too bad actually. Where it is looking like it might clog up for some time is the Thika Superhighway coming just past Survey and then connecting with Kiambu Road this morning is where it looks ugliest this morning. But, you know, it's moving. It's not at a bumper to bumper, so it's all right. Coming out of Western, it's not as bad as it has been for the last few days, but we have to keep an eye on that. And just in case it does get sticky, don't forget, you can use the Red Hill Link Road. Use that. It'll help you get out of the city quicker and back in without too much of a headache. Okay, let's talk options, guys. Tell us what you see. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127 just in case you run into something that folks should know about. Let us know there.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
7 minutes after 7, a very good morning to you. It's the 7th day of the 10th month of 2021. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. As we get to the second hour of the show, we begin with the day's proverb. CT.
Can a dog eat a bone a hyena has been defeated to eat?
Can a dog eat a bone that a hyena has been defeated to eat? So basically here we are establishing hierarchy.
Basically here, we are establishing a pecking order.
There's a pecking order. Hyena, in terms of cracking of bones, is superior to the dog.
Greater jaw power.
And if a hyena has been unable to crack a certain bone, don't expect the dog to do it.
The key thing is here, they're both partial.
Dogs.
I actually hadn't considered that, but you do have a valid point.
They're both
canine.
dogs.
Yes,
Yeah.
they're canine. Yes, one is domesticated, the other one far from it, and they're both partial to bones. So yes.
Okay. So know your place.
In essence, figure it out, and it's more like know your limits.
Know your limits.
Yes, but you know the mantra that is not only current but popular in this day and age is that there is no limit. There are no limits. You can do anything. It's actually not true. You can't do anything. You can do most things that you set out to do, but anything that you cannot. No human being actually can. Because if you could, then you wouldn't need the others, would you?
There are limits to everything.
There are limits to everything.
All right. Let's introduce our guest this hour. Like we said, this week we are celebrating young women who are making boss moves in the public service. Rose Washuka has been here before. Today she's speaking from the current office. She is the Chief of Staff in the office of the Chief Justice and President of the Supreme Court. Good morning, Rose.
Good morning.
Good to
morning,
have
Eric.
you again on the show. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you very
Last time
much.
we were talking about sports because you had previously served as Chief of Staff in the office of the Cabinet Secretary for Sports and those other things. Now it's Chief of Staff in the office of the Chief Justice. And just
That's
before we got to the top of the hour, we were saying there are so many chiefs in the judiciary. Chief of Staff, Chief Justice, Chief Registrar, Chief Magistrate.
Most are women.
Chief. It's a nice one. You know how just to plug that in, didn't you?
But of
Okay.
Plug it in nicely, huh?
Yeah, very nicely.
We were also talking about the energy sector. And they share similar characteristics. CS, a lady. Kengen, boss, lady. Kenya Power.
Board chair, lady. CEO, lady. Boss moves, eh?
There is power and justice.
It's the cream coming on top, finally.
Okay. Okay. What is the job of a Chief of Staff?
The Chief of Staff is really the facilitator in chief.
The chief word has to appear somewhere, right?
Well, the key facilitator. I always tell my colleagues that my role is to support what they do. But most importantly, to realize the vision of the Chief Justice. And what this means is that sitting where I am, I need to know exactly what's happening in the institution. And then I need to bring it all together to make everyone feel and everyone know that they have access to the Chief Justice, that their needs and their requests can be considered on time and quickly. And so, I know many chiefs are gatekeepers, but very far from the truth. This is actually, the person who makes sure that the institution, the Chief Justice also has a global view of the institution. Connecting with external stakeholders, connecting with the office of the Chief Registrar, connecting with all the other directors, guiding on programs to just make sure that they align with the vision of the Chief Justice, consulting and seeking guidance from the Chief Justice, and then cascading that downwards. And so, essentially, it's the oil. It's the oil that keeps the institution connected to the office of the Chief Justice in all ways.
That sounds like a very, very difficult job.
It is. It's not easy.
Because if you're talking about connecting all the dots within the institution and then extending it to other partners, and given the jurisdiction in which you are working, goodness, I'm just thinking of the power that's at play, the egos that are at play, and then the stakes that are at play. Because, this is the law, the outcome, the interpretation of it, and the impact it has on people's lives. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it.
Around the extent of this.
Yes, because I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about Chief Staff, say, in State House. And I'm thinking, yes, when she says, to make this thing work, it clicked. And where it clicked was, one of the things that State House was notorious for a while back was delays in appointments. Meaning, you have an appointment to come and see the president, and you will wait. Then things changed. And there's a Chief of Staff. And suddenly, you hear reports, if you're told 11, it's 11.
It still leaves me confused. Because like you're saying, now in State House, there's a control of State House.
Yes.
There's the office of the ADC, and then there's a Chief of Staff.
Yes.
I'm just left confused. Same thing with the office of the Chief Justice that has a Chief of Staff. Now, you're not the administrative head of the office, are you? Or are you?
Of the office of the CJ?
Yes.
I am.
Okay. But how many other people work in the office of the CJ? And are those not reporting to the Chief Registrar of the Judiciary?
Actually, the office of the CJ is currently structured in such a way that the office is headed by the Chief of Staff. The Chief of Staff then coordinates the legal departments. That's headed by a senior legal counsel, and then assisting legal counsels in the legal department. There's a communications office. There's a protocol department. And then there's, of course, the registry, the CJ's registry, the front office staff, administrators. And so the Chief of Staff actually sits at the Judiciary Management team that is headed by the Chief Registrar. And that is where all the directors converge and report on the aspects, from their dockets. Now, you realize that the Chief Justice is the head of the Judiciary. She's also the chairperson of the JSC, the chairperson of the National Council for Law Reporting, the chairperson for the National Council on Administration of Justice, and the president of the Supreme Court. So these 5 statutory mandates have to be coordinated by someone. And that coordinating role falls under my docket to just make sure that because of the breadth of work that the Chief Justice is expected to undertake, that the mechanisms and aspects laid out, the structures are so efficient as to ensure that that office touches all nodes, that all the as components of the Chief Justice's role are executed without any hitch. And so if I need to pull support from any of the directorates, then it will land on my desk to do that. If the Chief Justice is, for instance, opening a court, say in Kajiado, it will be my prerogative to figure out who needs to be engaged in that exercise and how that exercise can be coordinated safely, what the message of the Chief Justice ought to be, and how it resonates with the vision. And so it is a role that's very, very closely linked to the person, to the office holder. And it has to be a position of trust, which is what it is, that the holder of the office can trust you to manage the operations of the office without dropping the ball at any one time. And so when others are having, say, 8-hour days, I probably have 18-hour days. But the coordination, which is the most difficult part, if you get the coordination right, then efficiency, follows quickly.
Right. I mean,
great expectation, which is why the vision is absolutely necessary, because the vision gives you certain fundamental prerequisites that guide the way in which we operate. So, for instance, dialogic approach to engagement is one key one. And what that means is that we have to be proactive to engage and deal with the pressure. Get used to those turbulent waters and learn how to swim in them, which is why the idea of Justice Thursdays by the Chief Justice is exceptional. Because what it does is it allows the public a predictable time frame or a day where they expect the Chief Justice to be touching a public issue somewhere in the Republic. Of course, when she's not sitting in court. It also gives the internal stakeholders the same predictability to know that on Thursday, there are higher chances of getting audience with the Chief Justice because, again, during the week, in the way the week is structured, you have to really take care of that time. And so, yes, the pressure is quite high. And that's why the members of staff have to be, within the Office of the Chief Justice, have to be very mentally stable, solid people. They have to have very solid self-care practices, but then they also have to be guided by some framework in terms of how do we do this when we encountered with a request from the public, what happens? And so those SOPs, standard operating procedures, when a complaint comes from the public, where does it go? It comes to my desk, it goes to the legal desk, the senior legal counsel. The senior legal counsel then discusses it with the Office of the Ombudsperson, and then we keep a dashboard of all the things that we're doing. And I track that dashboard to see what has come in, who is handling it, how far is it, and when do we expect a resolution, and have those deadlines been met? And you have to organize it in that way. It is very difficult to create structures, but once those structures are in place, then people start to know, and it starts to make sense that this is what happens. Because I think the public is always unhappy if their needs cannot be met by a public office that is charged with the mandate of meeting those objectives. On the inside, though, there are so many competing interests and so many competing priorities. And so what happens is that the bearer of the office of the chief of staff has to be a very organized person, and it's not an easy thing to do. You also need to learn how to delegate. It's, delegation par excellence, because you can't handle all these issues. What you do is you play the role of a DJ. You mix the music. And then you track to see, is the beat in rhythm? Is it in
dancing.
tune? Yeah.
Rosie, I listen to you and I get a sense that you are building an office from the ground up. Like, we didn't have this office with the predecessors of Justice Koome, Chief Justice Koome. For example, in the office of Chief Justice Maraga, did you have a Chief of Staff?
Yes.
Did we have that?
Yes, we did.
And
we've had 2 previous chiefs of staff. And the office, of course, started with the office of the Chief Justice, Willie Mutunga, Dan Kanukelo, a very seasoned...
yes, I remember that. Kanukelo, yeah.
And then in Chief Justice Maraga's time, the Chief of Staff, Dr. Conrad Bosire, was in office. The thing about this office of Chief of Staff is you have a blank slate. The way you manage the office and the way you organize it is entirely your prerogative. And so that's why it feels and looks like I'm building an office from the ground up, because I am responding to the needs of that office. But I'm also responding to the vision of the Chief Justice. The Honorable Chief Justice wants there to be a structure that can be passed forward to other Chief Justices. A structure that allows for that continuity, so that others who come after us or after her don't have to build documents, don't have to build the structures, that they can plug into already built structures that have been debated and discussed by the Judicial Service Commission and adopted. So we are in the phase of building structures, and we know we are going to be in this phase for at least the next 12 months. But we always say we are pushing the rock up the hill. Once it's up the hill, it will take very little effort to roll it downwards.
Let me ask the question. Do I hear you to be saying that this office up to now has not had what you may refer to as a manual of operation?
Right, that's correct.
Okay. So if it doesn't have a manual of operation, then it doesn't have standard operating procedures either.
So again, as I've said, it is. I think it's the same thing with regimes within the political space. That there are some positions that. You're handed a blank slate. Here is an office, structure it. Or here is a role description, structure it for delivery, which could be positive, but also sometimes not, because then you spend a lot of time trying to structure it as opposed to plugging into those structures, which is the position.
Actually, that's what I was thinking of, because if you are trying to give this skeleton flesh, it means your work in coordinating the affairs of people who relate to this office is greater. Coordinating the affairs on its own is not an issue, but the people involved.
Exactly. Yeah.
You see, getting them to see things in the way that you're structuring it. And remember, this is against a backdrop of people who are already used to doing things in a certain way. So if what you are doing is slightly different, I'm using the word slightly deliberately, then the natural human mean is to give pushback, not to accept. And in our country, the way people do it is in a passive-aggressive way. No one tells you outrightly they're not going to do it. But all indications that they're not doing it.
And all your questions are just going nowhere.
Yes. And in a meeting, people agree with you. In fact, some even tell you that's a very good idea, but nothing moves.
Yeah. There is, I have to say, because I've been in 3 chief of staff roles in the public service, in 2 ministries and now in the judiciary. But there's something different about the judiciary. And this has been evident in the 3 months, going to 4 months that the Chief Justice has been in office. I've been there for 2. is that there is exceptional cooperation. I don't know if it's the culture of the institution, excuse me, but there is just exceptional cooperation. It is, they apply this aspect of enterprise leadership, where they pull together in sort of like a multi-agency way to move things forward. And because the position of chief of staff has been, at least in 2 previous regimes, people have an understanding of what this position is meant to do. And I have to give props to Duncan, because he was the pioneer and he set the pace for this positional interaction with the rest of the judiciary. And so it's sort of like the moving, bearing that anchors the rotation.
It basically tells you what to expect in this structure, what to put together in the structure.
Yeah, but I also hear what Muga is saying, that you might encounter microaggressions, but you have to be very emotionally attuned to notice them and then to know how to deal with them. And so it's also a role that requires a very high socio and emotional intelligence, because you see those microaggressions and then you're able to forecast what might happen. And if you need to engage another person, then you can do that. If you need to have an open conversation, then you can do that. If you need to change tact, then you can do that. But it also requires a lot of flexibility.
I like what you said about the cooperation and how people work together. It therefore means that within the judiciary, they will support each other. And that gives them strength. It means they can actually carry out their duties knowing full well that so long as one is doing what they're supposed to do, the
boat is moving.
Yes, and the colleagues will support them. But there's a problem with that also. When people get along that well, they then form a cartel.
And any external entry is treated as an outsider.
Yes, or any perspective that differs from the path,
established.
Yes, is not considered favorably. But I like the fact that they cooperate.
It's a thing of trying to strike a balance between there's an established tradition, which is good because it's a tradition and then it makes the whole organization move well. But if you come in with some extra ideas, you sound like you're a disruptor. Well, and it takes a while then for the tradition to basically accept this new thing.
I do agree that the formation of cartels requires cooperation as a core ingredient, right? However, it also requires joint interest. And in most cases, that interest takes the form of either an economic or intellectual form. And if you look at the history of the post-2010 judiciary, pre-2010, you only had one registrar of the judiciary. You had a judiciary that was basically a skeleton of an institution. And then, enters the constitution that sort of ruffles and changes and moves things around in a very dramatic way, especially for the judiciary. So you have the introduction of the office of the chief registrar, you have the creation of the Supreme Court, you have the constitutionalization of the Judicial Service Commission, you have just a flurry of changes within the judiciary. And that's because it was an institution that was marked for massive change. So we had an overhaul of an institution that has really struggled to embrace that new look. And it has taken 10 years to get to where we are. But if you look back, it's a very different institution with very different structures. Who would have thought that a judiciary would incorporate and accept a private sector model of directorships within the institution that now seems to work very well. Even so, the use of ICT and digitization of the judiciary has been an ongoing cause since the 1997, when when the then Justice Ringera tried to digitize the Court of Appeal, and then it starts in earnest with the Judiciary Transformation Framework, which is why I think Chief Justice Mutunga was quite intent on calling it Transformation Framework, and then Chief Justice Maraga picked up by calling it the Sustaining Judiciary Transformation. We are now working on the third framework, and we'll see where that goes. But Chief Justice Martha Koome has decided to take that even further. Because if you consider that the past 10 years, the judiciary has focused on building itself as an institution, laying the framework, laying the groundwork, changing the work culture. And it is now, from data within the institution, which is an institution that actually is guided by data. Judicial policy is guided by data. There's an entire department on data. It has statisticians and economists, which is quite monumental. So it was very inward focused in building the institution itself, which is understandable because the institution had to really, start from scratch. But now it is time for that institution to now open itself up to the public, hence access, social transformation through access to justice. It is now time to open those structures up to the Kenyan public. We have 27 courts now that have been built across the country by the JPIP project of the World Bank. We have expanded, small claims courts that have been established. You have ADR that has been alternative dispute resolution that has been institutionalized. You have alternative justice systems that have been institutionalized. And so it is now an opportune time for Kenyans to really engage with that sector in the most efficient way possible. Because the institution now is ready. It has its structures.
It's now ready to serve us better.
It's now ready to serve better.
Okay. Social transformation through access to justice. That is Chief Justice Martha Koome's strategic focus as she now takes the reins of the judiciary. And her Chief of Staff, Rose Washuka, is in the studio. Just telling us what this whole transformation is and how we are going to be able to make sure that we access justice better. 28 minutes to 8, Kenya's biggest conversation takes a break. Let's take a look at the weather forecast and traffic, what's happening on the roads at this time, and then we continue the conversation with Rose Washuka, Chief of Staff in the Office of the Chief Justice. We are celebrating young women who are making big moves in the public service. We've had them from Monday, and as you can tell, well, we're in a good place as a country. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
Hello.
Halo, umesikia?
Nimesikia nini?
Hujasikia habari? Hebu acha nikuambie. Kile kimetokea.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Don't wait for hearsay. Dial *550*1# to read the Standard e-paper from the convenience of your mobile phone for only 20 shillings from your telecom line. And stay up to date for a reliable source with over 100 years of experience with no additional data.
15, we'll see lows of 14 today and highs of 27. Nyeri town is cloudy this morning at 16, highs of 26 and lows of 14. It's 17 degrees and cloudy in Nakuru, highs of 26 and lows of 16 today, while in Eldoret, sunny conditions, highs of 34 and lows of 23.
Spice up your life.
All right, Jogo Road is piling up today. We're going towards Landis and going towards Kamkunji roundabout, and it seems quite packed this morning. We're also looking at that Uhuru Highway stretch, absolutely packed between the Nyayo Stadium roundabout and then out towards Haile Selassie. Okay, it's going to feed in from Aerodrome Road just a little bit. That's coming off of Langata Road, which also, interestingly enough, is jam-packed all the way to the roundabout at Timor. Bagathi Way not looking too bad right now. It's going to connect with the city mortuary roundabout just coming off from Gong Road as well going into the city will not be too painful. Where it looks like blood, sweat and tears is the Thika Superhighway all the way from Survey this morning going out towards the Pangani underpass, not moving bumper to bumper now where it was not before, and also Kiambu Road in and outbound Kiambu Road absolutely red. Okay, so use the bypasses. I'm not sure if you can get off of any one of those jam-packed roads right now, but if you're headed in those directions, use the bypasses. They will help this morning. Are you stuck somewhere? Find a good route. Let us know. SpiceFMKE on Twitter. Text 40127.
87.9 Spice FM. Mombasa.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
24 minutes to 8.
94
This
point.
conversation continues in the Situation Room. This morning is Eric Latiff, Ndu Okoh, CT Muga, and Rose Washuka, Chief of Staff in the Office of the Chief Justice. Now, Rose, you're telling us about the strategic focus of Chief Justice Martha Koome, which is social transformation through access to justice. And as the Chief of Staff in her office, you said, and you explained it very well, it's your job to make sure that Martha Koome actually delivers on what she intends to deliver. So how are we going about rolling out this social transformation through access to justice? What are the main ingredients of this strategic focus that then need to work and move together so that we can realize this dream?
Great. As I explained before, this social transformation focus is on really expanding the doors to justice. And I'll paint a picture. If you are if your child has been defiled in Kasarani and you need to access justice, what options do you have? You need to engage with the police. You need to engage with the hospital, the doctor, and then you need to engage with the justice system. And in order for the justice system to determine the matter properly, the evidence has to be preserved. And Kizi was here and she spoke about preserving that evidence. And what the vision of the Chief Justice is that there will be an immediate access. There will be courts and institutions of the judiciary that are close enough to the people that they don't have to, exert themselves and their resources to access them. Which is why some of the vision are that they out the judiciary the mandate. The second one is that there's an inspired team of judges, judicial officers, and judiciary staff. And this is, this is going to be rolled out by making sure that the staff welfare within the judiciary is really up to scratch. Post-COVID, the system has suffered a lot of shocks. All of us have suffered a lot of shocks. But how do you facilitate the people who work within the judiciary to remain motivated? Because if I'm not inspired or motivated, the experience of the customer, of the Kenyan person engaging with the judiciary will be different. And so the idea that the Chief Justice has is to put in place a state-of-the-art judicial service academy. And it's an academy because it is meant to bring everybody together to really debate and talk about how to train, inspire, mentor. It will be a hub of connection and conversation. The third one is the financial mechanisms within the judiciary, that the judiciary is accountable, that the judiciary is adequately funded, that the judiciary is absorbing the resources it has, but that the judiciary is also open to scrutiny and to question. The other one is this idea of shared leadership. Because as I've said, the Chief Justice has 5 statutory mandates. And that the Chief Justice has to manage all those portfolios. However, there are judges and judicial officers within the judiciary who can steer some of those. And so instead of holding on to all those aspects, the judiciary, the Chief Justice is employing a system of shared leadership so that it trickles down to the Kenyan person through the National Council Administration of Justice, through the Court Users Committee, in all court stations that have lawyers, that have the Office of the DPP, the police, the business persons, everybody in that court station. And then the final one is this idea of coordination, because you have to coordinate the justice sector. It has 2 components. It has the access to justice. So I need to go to court. I need to be heard. I need to be heard expeditiously. That's one component. That's access to justice. Then there's administration of justice. Administration of justice is how are these core players interacting? And are they interacting to support access, and are they interacting to make sure that justice is realized. By the Kenyan person. So these 5 components are what marks the vision. Now that's the vision, which is a different approach to what has been done previously by her 2 predecessors. So you set out the vision and you give the broad imprint of where of the tenets that her leadership embraces. Now, during this time, we will now go into a process of writing the actual framework. The framework will have the execution prerogatives or prerequisites. But it will infuse the ideals of the vision into the framework. And so it's a 2-tier process, and it's very deliberate as a 2-tier process so that, this is where we want to go together. And the vision was negotiated. As you can see, it's fairly small. It's quite tiny. I know, it's not the 200, 500 pages usually that mark and characterize these strategic plans.
It's 50 pages.
It's quite tiny if you think about it.
Yeah.
You can read it in...
It's an abridged version.
It's very small. And so the idea is that whenever anyone in the judiciary is working on a strategic plan or a work plan, going forward, that before the strategic plan itself, which takes a little longer, is finalized, and we expect it to be out by the end of March, that they are guided on the principles and the outcomes for this institution. And so I've been engaging with various entities. Now is the time people are writing their strategies to justice. Whatever else you do has to speak to that idea of access to justice, which is why the vision is quite monumental. So there is an understanding that access to justice in a way that is very friendly and very impacting to the Kenyan people is what actually now this next leadership is very, very keen about.
In order to deliver this, obviously, there's monumental support that is required. And oftentimes we've seen this support hinged on money, hinged on vital resources to have this done. The judiciary has previously been besieged with a lack of this kind of support. Absolutely. And has often been crying out, we need more in terms of budgets. People have often said at the same time that you're not truly independent if you're not able to call how much you can spend. In order to deliver this, however, that support is necessary.
It is.
And it's one of the things I believe she spoke of when we spoke to her a few weeks ago. Yeah. How then do you see that the lack thereof of that support would impact this vision that everybody's clearly working so hard on?
That's an incredible question because resources are quite a significant aspect of unlocking and realizing this vision. What we must understand, and what I hope and pray that we can all understand, is that this mandate to deliver justice to Kenyans is a shared mandate, so that if the judiciary is starved of resources, the Kenyan person is denied justice. Okay? And so it is a non-negotiable element that the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary have to work together for the Kenyan people. Article 1 of the Constitution gives the sovereignty. The Kenyan person is the boss. The public is the boss. And so when the judiciary requests for a budget allocation of 70 billion or 30 billion and gets 17 billion, there is a critical shortfall that ought to be bridged, which is why the conversations that are happening at the very high levels of government on resourcing and financing the judiciary are quite monumental. Development partners have put in quite a lot of money, upwards of 14 billion into the judiciary, through the World Bank JPIP project, through the European Union PLID project, and others. IDLO and others have really supported the judiciary. However, this aspect of, think of it like this, it is not the judiciary that is being supported. It is the right of the Kenyan person to access justice that is being supported. And so if we have a society that doesn't feel heard, that doesn't feel that their grievances are addressed in the most efficient way, either because we have inadequate infrastructure or inadequate resources, then you have a society that is unstable. No matter what other interventions you have in any other sector, that still remains, because justice is cross-cutting, and justice is justice in resource allocation, justice in everything. Think of it like this. we have about 700,000 cases pending in court right now, right? If you quantify those 700,000 cases, the amount of money trapped within the judiciary is upwards, billions of money. The introduction of the court annex mediation, which is a form of alternative dispute resolution, has managed to free up about 500 million of 2.5 billion shillings stuck in only 22 court stations in the country. And we have upwards of 128. So imagine if we put in, say, 100 billion into the judiciary, we could easily free and release into the economy upwards of 500 billion stuck in the judiciary. And so we have to approach this from a cost-benefit analysis with the Kenyan people at the heart of it. So yes, lack of resources will hinder. It is a structural impediment to that realization of the Kenyans' right of access to justice. And these are conversations that we must continue to have. We must continue to dialogue. And everybody must get concerned and engaged in persuading that the judiciary
Rose,
is actually resourced properly.
Do you think there are people who don't get this? Do you think there are people who, within the judiciary, outside the judiciary, who don't get the importance of financing, of funding, properly funding the judiciary?
I think so. Because if we were all on the same page, we wouldn't be having a conversation about inadequate resources in a sector that is so critical.
Is it that they don't get it, or is it that they get it but they choose deliberately to ignore this?
Well, I don't want to cast aspersions, but I do believe that there has been probably a misguided notion that the judiciary is blocks certain interests. But the judiciary is really, as the Chief Justice likes to put it, one leg of a three-legged stool. That without it, the stool cannot stand.
And there's nowhere for the Kenyan people to sit.
If we want to improve the Kenyan economy, we have to also invest in making sure that Kenyans can do business with each other and their disputes can be resolved when they arise, right? And that is part of. I mean, that's the thinking that we want people to understand. And the Chief Justice is very clear that we must continue to have these conversations. And I loved today's proverb that can a dog crack a bone that a hyena hasn't cracked? It's been an ongoing struggle to resource the judiciary. But actually, when you are expressing that proverb, I thought, unless the dog has the persistence and the agility to really struggle with the bone, there's an aspect of time. How much time does a dog have vis-a-vis how much the hyena had?
Energy.
And we can theorize it in that way. But resourcing the judiciary is quite critical, not for the judiciary itself, but for the Kenyan people and actually for the economy, because we've been cracking the numbers, and we know that we have a couple of billions, stuck in the commercial division.
So what is the Chief Justice prepared to do to finally crack this bone? This is a conversation that has been had from Chief Justice Mutunga's time to Chief Justice Maraga's time. Operationalization of the judiciary fund. It's basic, it's stated, it's there.
Absolutely.
But it has just not been operationalized. And as the reason I was asking you is, when this was being put in the constitution, in the law, when these conversations were taking place, everybody understood what was meant.
Yeah.
If you go to the Houses of Parliament, everybody sees the reason why we need to operationalize the judiciary fund.
Absolutely.
But then they don't.
Yeah. So the good news, Eric, is that the authority to operationalize the fund is finally out. I am part of a committee from this that comprises professionals from the Central Bank, the judiciary itself, the Office of the Auditor General, and the National Treasury, that is working on the mechanisms and the parameters to actually fully operationalize it. And we have a deadline of the 1st of November for those structures to be fully in place. There is also a team that's working on the ICT system on which the Judiciary Fund is going to be anchored. And there is a firm commitment and which has been marked even by the way the judiciary is budgeting this year. The judiciary is now not in the sector, in the justice sector, but is doing its budgeting process independently as we prepare to load the allocation to the judiciary in the judiciary fund on the 1st of July 2022.
Could you explain the independent bit about the budgeting and the independence? And how what you're saying differs from
what's going to be different
from what was done previously.
Yeah, so it gives a lot of flexibility to the judiciary to actually expend resources, because once money is put into the fund, it's not plowed. It doesn't go back to Treasury if it is unutilized at the end of the financial year. Also, it gives the judiciary a bit of autonomy when it comes to budgeting, because sectors have caps. So if you're in the justice sector and your cap is 200 billion, you have to budget within that 200 billion in your sector. And the sector has the police, it has the ODPP, it has all the actors within the justice sector. So if the judiciary is outside the sector, then the judiciary can budget according to the judiciary's needs.
Its own specific needs.
Its own specific needs, as opposed to limiting itself to the cap that is presented to the sector.
Something that always bothers me, all these changes are wonderful and I like them. The alternate conflict resolution mechanisms, I know they work. We have more arbitrators, it works because I know people in that space. But for most citizens, their matters end up in court.
Yes.
This morning we're looking at a case of a young lady who was defiled. This case took 5 years.
Yes.
Okay? She was 14, she's probably now 19. So I'm asking the question, all these things, how do they translate into that justice being received expeditiously?
Exactly. And this broadening doorways of justice, I mean, the judiciary is one component of multiple actors.
Yes.
Yeah. So you need all these actors to move together, which is why the NCAJ was created. The National Council on Administration of Justice has all the actors within the justice sector, including civil society, professional bodies, coming together to discuss this aspect. So, if the police are having a challenge or are having structural impediments in collecting and presenting evidence to the court, or if the judiciary is having a problem managing the way lawyers conduct the case, or if the ODPP is having one problem or the other, the entire system collapses, which is really the thing that has to be cracked for the Kenyan people. And people have to come together to see, if you have a case of defilement, it is truly not justice to keep that case pending even for more than 2 years, not even 5, even 2 years. So what are we prepared to do to make sure that that can be realized? And I would be lying if I said that I have the magic wand, that any one of us has the magic wand. It has to be a collaborative effort, which is why the Chief Justice is very clear that this aspect of dialogue, we must be able to continuously speak with each other. Our teams have to be capable of coming together and working together to make sure that these structural impediments are removed. And one of the active ways that the Chief Justice is handling this is, one, in terms of managing the docket of the judge or of the judicial officer. She has now indicated in very clear terms that mandate rests with the judicial officer or the judge, that it is with the judiciary. So as a lawyer, if you want to seek an adjournment, the judge or judicial officer can actually deny that call for adjournment. It's either you're willing to proceed with your case or you're not ready to proceed. But this idea of standing matters generally, obsolete language that needs to be, done away with in our civil and criminal procedures, is the starting point. So that if you file a case as a litigant, it is not a mechanism to frustrate, which is sometimes what happens. And the challenges that confront children's matters, civil matters, criminal matters are varied. And we have to look at them in their varied forms. Cases of defilement are exceptionally sensitive and require like a one-stop response. And that one-stop response is, if a child has been defiled, that child can go to a one-stop center, which is what some of the proposals of establishing small claims courts in these informal settlements is going to address. That you can walk into a one-stop center where there is a police station, there is a government hospital, there is a court, and these entities can speak to each other because they are within the same vicinity.
Right.
And there's a court that actually specializes on sexual and gender-based violence, which is going to be one of the, some courts are going to be designated as such. And if we can crack this idea of one-stop centers, maybe we can start to see some shift, because, the evidence doesn't have to be transported 50 kilometers across. A child doesn't have to travel so far between a police station, between reporting and, reporting to the government hospital. So it's really just about investing in the way that we envision justice.
We've run out of time, haven't we?
Yeah, we have.
You must come back again, because I want us to talk about this self-censorship. How the judiciary hopes to rein itself in and to be accountable to itself.
Exactly.
All right.
Yes.
A conversation to be had again. Rose,
happy to come again.
thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you
and
very
congratulations on the work that you're doing. And somebody actually put in a comment there, Moja says, these women seem focused in their public work. Proud of these young women and definitely taking Kenya forward. And I think that comment is shared by very many. We've been celebrating you and your colleagues, the young women who are making very big moves in public service. Monday, we had Dr. Kizi Shako, the police surgeon. On Tuesday, we had Emma Kithenji. She's the head of the Kenya School on Revenue Administration. Yesterday, we had the CAS in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Masi Mwangangi. Today is Rose Washuka, the Chief of Staff in the Office of the Chief Justice. Tomorrow, we have another Chief Administrative Secretary for Youth, and she'll be here. Thank you very much, Rose. All the best in all the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Please pass our regards to the Chief Justice. Tell her she promised to be here in the room the next time.
Absolutely.
And now that we know who the office is, I think the message is home. Have a lovely day.
Thank you very, very much.
Keep it here for more conversations coming up in the next hour. Very good morning to you. It's now 8 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 SpiceFM.
This is Newswire. Dennis Aseto. The government has declared Monday, October 11, 2021 as a public holiday. This is according to a public statement released by Interior CS Dr. Fred Matiang'i. Matiang'i said Monday becomes a public holiday by virtue of the fact that Utamaduni Day falls on Sunday, October 10th. Utamaduni Day was previously known as Moi Day. Kenya recorded 130 COVID-19 positive cases from a sample size of 4,869 tested in the last 24 hours. The positivity rate is now at 2.7%, with total confirmed infections rising to 250,510 and cumulative tests so far conducted at 2,586,260. From the cases, 127 are Kenyans, while 3 are foreigners, 74 are males and 56 are females, while the youngest is a 1-year-old and the oldest is 99 years. This coming as the government is optimistic that we will vaccinate 10 million Kenyans by December in our journey to winning the fight against the virus. This was revealed by the Health CAS Masi Mwangangi in an interview with SpiceFM.
The country is in a good spot because we now have at least close to 6 million doses in stock. So hoping to get to our 10 million target in December. We think we will make the target. So what's happening is in a day we're able to do 10,000, got to 50,000. We had a good week where we managed to get to 90,000 a day, people vaccinated. So what we've been doing, if you've noticed in the last week, is really pushing what we're calling RRIs in different groups and cohorts. Yesterday, CS Muthui Kagwe was in Mathare Hospital. So we got all our inpatients vaccinated in Mathare, as well as outpatients, as well as the families of the staff and the staff.
The curfew between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. that has been enforced since March last year is likely to be lifted within the next 1 month. Tourism CS Najib Balala said he is confident the government would allow Kenyans to return to their normal lives and continue their economic activities without any restrictions. In addition, Balala said in order to achieve this, Kenyans must be vaccinated. It will be remembered that the economy was heavily affected due to COVID-19 pandemic that saw Kenyans lose their jobs. The irrigation project in Muthui, West Pokot County is expanding and gaining more popularity in the country due to food production in the county and even other parts of the country. According to the project's chairman, Mark Meut, farmers in the project have successfully expanded the farm from 600 hectares to 900 hectares. Although the project has only been producing maize, Meut said is encouraging farmers to mix the variety of crops in the project as a way of increasing fertility.
Tungependa kama wakulima tufanye kitu ambacho kinaitwa diversification kwa sababu ya kusaidia mchanga wetu ili usije ukakuwa na aina moja tu ya mmea. Kwa hivyo tumepanga hiyo, tutaendelea kuzungumza na kampuni kuona ya kwamba mimea mingine pia isiwe tu labda ni mahindi yanaweza kufanya kazi hapa. Kwa hivyo ni masuala ambayo tunajaribu kuzungumza, tunajaribu kuweka mikakati ili kusaidia jamii. Huu ni mradi ambao unasaidia wakulima wengi na jamii ya Weiwei kwa ujumla na Sigor kwa ujumla.
Internationally, and Prince Andrew has been granted access to a sealed document his legal team believes could help end the civil case being brought by Virginia Jeffrey, who accuses him of sexual abuse. A U.S. judge gave permission for the agreement between Ms. Jeffrey and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein to be shared with Andrew's lawyers. Jeffrey's lawyers believe it will be irrelevant to Prince Andrew's case. The Duke of York, 61 years old, has consistently denied Ms. Jeffrey's allegations. Jeffrey, 38, claims she was sexually assaulted by the prince at 3 locations including New York. And Kenya today takes on Mali in their 2022 World Cup qualifier that will be played in Agadir, Morocco. Harambee Stars head coach Engin Firat leads his charges against Mali in Group E qualifier, which was moved to the 12th century Moroccan town for lack of FIFA-approved stadia in Mali. Kenya's Harambee Stars arrived in Agadir and held its first light training session yesterday. Stars will face Eagles side that boasts of 22 Euro-based players, among them 12 who ply their trade in French League One and 4 in Africa. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
And we're officially in traffic hour this morning. Quite a lot of traffic coming off of Ngong Road today. Not quite sure what that's about. But then it spills over onto Haile Selassie today. All the way from Ngong Road, Haile Selassie. It's a junction where a lot of traffic then coming from Uhuru Highway is meeting today. Aerodrome Road feeding off. And then also Lusaka Road coming from Langata Road. And then, of course, down Mombasa Road itself. That forms the traffic web that we are seeing. Getting into the CBD also from Westlands, also coming off Jogo Road and coming off Afika Superhighway today. It doesn't look really pretty, but hopefully we'll get out without too much of an issue. Kiambu Road, my goodness. Everybody's out on the road this morning past 8 o'clock. Nobody got that memo. Well, it seems that we're just going to have to go through this one slowly and as carefully as possible. It's backed up as far back as Survey today on the Thika Superhighway. We're going to have to see this one through slowly but surely. Coming off of Limuru Road today, also past Village Market. It's not so bad. But then you get past City Park rather. And then out towards Forest Road is where we see it closed up just a little bit. Traffic hour is where we are. Let's see how we can get through it, guys. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Just in case, text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It is 7 minutes after 8, and it's the 7th day of October 2021. Kenya's biggest conversation. This is the third hour of the show. We're here from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday morning. We are live on KTN Home, on SpiceFM, and also on www.spicefm.co.ke, in addition to SpiceFM KE on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. We begin this hour, like we always begin the hours, with the day's proverb by C.T. Muga.
Can a dog eat a bone? A hyena has been defeated to eat.
Can a dog eat a bone? A hyena has been defeated to eat. Good question. This is from Western Kenya.
Western Kenya.
Ah, yeah. Read it in Western.
All right. Here I go. Please forgive me, those who understand this language and who subscribe to it. I'm going to do the best I can.
You're not Western educated.
Inculcated more like it. Okay. Eshikumba shihaya ifisi mana imbwa yaha nyala. Let me repeat it. Eshikumba shihaya ifisi mana imbwa yaha nyala.
I've heard fisi, I've heard mbwa. So I can.
I've heard nyala.
And nyala. What is nyala?
How am I supposed to know?
Haya is the mala fisi, mala mbwa, nyala. Can a hyena, can a dog break a bone that a hyena hasn't been unable to
eat?
Can a dog eat a bone?
Yes.
That a
Dogs
hyena
eat
has
bones.
been unable to?
It's very interesting that you picked that proverb when I was coming to the studio.
Exactly.
Because I also I'm from Western.
But
See,
this was strategic timing.
I like when you use the word he's not Western educated.
Our guest this hour is a Western educated, Western bred, Western cultured guest. His name is Ebenezer Amadi. He's a program manager for sustainable inclusive business at the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. I'm trying to look for a Western word. Okay, it's okay. FEC.
The thing that you would have said is the thing that you have said is it's because it's morning. You'd have said Oriana. Malay. So it's one thing you can write in your diary. So next time someone comes.
That greeting I know.
That one you've come
that I'm familiar with.
That one you know.
Yes.
Or if you come from, we have different dialects. If you come from Maragoli, say Ovendi.
Yes.
Be Muramu.
Okay. So when you heard CT
yes,
reading that proverb, which dialect is that?
It could be Nyeri, the Nyeri people there. The way he was pronouncing it, it sounded rich.
Yeah.
And it felt like a wise man was speaking.
How would you say it yourself?
Ego today.
Do not. Again. What was that proverb about praising the wise? Making your own path for the wise?
No.
The greatness.
Those who those who acknowledge the great, the deeds of the great. Chart. I'm paraphrasing.
Yes.
Chart the pathway for their own greatness.
For their own greatness.
Yes.
You see.
That's what Ebenezer is doing.
Wisdom.
That's what Ebenezer is doing. Charting your own path to greatness.
Wisdom.
Welcome. It's good to have you in the show.
Thank you so much.
We've had you in the show before, but you've always just been joining us virtually.
Yeah.
Finally, you're here.
Finally, I'm here and I get to sit next to the wise man. I get to sit next to the lady and
across this guy.
Across this, looking at you.
This guy.
Controlling the studio.
Right.
And I was just saying that you should have told me that you have a turntable here. I would have come with my some music
you'd have
to entertain.
calculated.
Yes, to entertain your listeners and your viewers.
Don't worry.
We actually put the decks there because we are discussing circular economy. So we thought circular economy has something to do with you spinning the discs.
Nice one.
We put the thing there
It's just for you.
It's
Just for you.
Yeah.
This is a nice theme to have while talking about circular economy.
So let's start with definitions. You'll tell us about circular economy, but let's start with what is sustainable inclusive business?
Sustainable Inclusive Business is a program under the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. The Kenya Private Sector Alliance is an umbrella body of the private sector in Kenya. And the Kenya Private Sector Alliance does, if you break it down, two things. One is looking at policy influences, so basically that's advocacy, and ensuring that there is an enabling environment for the private sector to operate. So things to do with taxes, things to do with regulations, policies that are there that possibly could have some bottlenecks. So we look at the gaps that exist. Also listen to our members, which is the private sector. So we have two categories of members. We have the business membership organization, then we have corporates. Now, under the different path where I was talking about on social inclusion, we have projects. And Sustainable Inclusive Business is one of the programs. And we like to call it the Knowledge Center, because it started off as a project and then it will transition. Because when you talk about sustainability, we also want to be sustainable
yourselves.
So you don't preach water
and drink wine.
Yeah, I was about to say the opposite, so I was looking at CT. So Sustainable Inclusive Business basically champions the adoption of practices that then ensure sustainability. And when I was talking about sustainability the other time in the show, I mentioned that you can look at it in two different ways. So meeting your short-term and long-term obligations, so money, and then also looking at the environment. How are you interacting with your environment, with the community that you live in? And